Okay, you guys, I am here. We are alive. I'm Suzanne Titcomire. I used to write for Pathos for almost 10 years, a column called No Longer Quivering about the quiverful movement. I also want to say that everything I'm saying today is just my opinion. Take it as you want and don't bully anybody, not even her. Okay, you guys, I was going to talk in great detail about this distressing thing. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm still going to talk about it. I'm going to talk around it. I'm not going to say she is a awful parent because I'm going to let you make your own decisions whether or not she's an awful parent or not. This was just a this was just a really difficult weekend. I've got to throw that out there. We had tropical storm that turned into hurricane Julia that wiped through this area. We got the bottom part of it. We got the rains, and we're still having a few of the rains from this tropical storm hurricane turned back into tropical storm thing that's now steaming up the Pacific coast, going up to Mexico, where it's expected to drop a ton of rain. So I'm jumpy anytime there's hurricanes. I'm jumpy, jumpy, jumpy. Because I've lived through some really bad ones. Betsy, Camille, a number of them in Louisiana where we lost everything or came damn close to it. So anytime you say hurricane, and that was one of the things I liked about Costa Rica, is until we moved here, there'd only been one recorded hurricane hit here. When we got here, a second one hit, and that was another story for another day. We were trying to fly home. It took us solid 3 days to get from Costa Rica to get home, even though we had plane tickets on day one, because the hurricane happened to hit right when we were trying to fly out. And so that was my hurricane story of luggage on your head, running through the storm waters, trying to get to the airport, sleeping at the airport. Anyway, long story short. So this weekend, I was already agitated about that. You add in the very real deflection that we saw going on, the deflection that involved her son, and the deflection of talking about the CULTs that she's endured. Now, Renelle Smith did an excellent video on the whole CULT situation, all things she said. And I got to tell you guys, I was really amped up about that. Hey, Shaylin, Kentucky girl, Christine, Java man. I was very, very, very amped up this weekend about the CULT stories in her because she's taken so much of my own story. And every now and then I see another little bit that she's taken that I'm like, I can't believe you said that. Or I see she's taken from someone else's story. So there was a lot of that was going on. I have to wonder if he's sick or not. She's told so many falsehoods. Christine, I don't think he's as sick as she said. And what happened this weekend proves that, I think. But that wasn't the main reason I was upset. The main reason I was upset was reading through all of the postings she made about his health. Okay, we're going to talk about what happens when you have a child that's chronically ill and that children do get sick all the time. And yeah, that's what I was going to say, Christoph Van. We need to talk about when is and isn't an appropriate time to take your child to the doctor for fever. I know that I had one chronically ill child and I had two children that were normal. And I would have taken any of the three to the doctor with 102.7 fever. I would have taken any of the three. I would have likely have called the doctor once the temperature got to 100 or 101 with the chronically ill one. Why? Because my daughter in particular had immune system problems, and fevers could mean a bad thing with her. She started getting shingles when she was 6. So when she got fevers, I had to stay on top of them. I couldn't just say, oh, let's see what the fever does. She doesn't want her child talked about. Why does she put all of his info out there? Shaylin, exactly. You can't say, don't talk about my child, and then put all your child's info out there. People are going to talk about it, and people are going to judge a hell out of your parenting skills. I got to admit, this weekend I was judging pretty hard. Not poor Vaughn. Happy birthday, sweet boy. But her, her skills. I was looking at that. So I went in and I looked at Cleveland Clinic, their recommendations. I went in and I looked at Harvard Medical School's recommendations. Shaylin, you have to. I was going to talk about that too a little bit, about extreme fevers. Harvard Medical and Cleveland Clinic all said that if the child has a fever of over 102.0, doctor. You call the doctor, you go in. Doctor, that's an appropriate measure at that point. It's what cannot be an appropriate, it's probably not, may not be an appropriate measure is waiting it out. Now, I know there is a big school of thought that thinks that fever is perfectly natural and normal and that you have to immediately just let the fever work out. Let me tell you where that can lead. I had my own experiences with that this year. Back in late February, I popped 104 rising up fever, and I ended up taking the ER ride, the ambulance ride to the ER, where they struggled to get my fever down in the hospital. I had a silent UTI that I had no idea, no symptoms, nothing. And my first warning that anything was wrong with me was extreme fever. A fever that high, I started having problems with my heart. One of the walls of my heart stopped beating right, and I stopped being able to pull oxygen out of the air. So that's what the danger is with these high fevers. Java Man, I saw that too. And I also want to say I have a girlfriend who, well, not a girlfriend, somebody I know that, well, several people who've lost children to sudden high fever spikes. It does happen, even with very healthy children. It's not unheard of to have a high fever spike and lose the child. I mean, it's rare, but it does happen. Oh, your daughter was under 2. Shaylin, I've took my son a number of times with a fever that high. He used to have ear infections, and he just popped these horrifically high fevers that scare the crap out of me, and he was perfectly healthy. And COVID is still alive, most definitely, Christoph, and it keeps morphing. Why does she think that this requires a global audience? Java Man, it is deflection. Notice that anytime there is any really bad legal trouble or something doesn't go her way in the courtroom, she immediately invents, well, maybe not even invent. I don't want to call it inventing because I don't know. Something about the poor child's health gets shared. Something about his health. One time she shared all of his medication that he was on, and I was surprised it was so low down. People I work with know I have 2 sons. That's it. Maybe their names. No more. Christoph, and yeah, exactly. You don't really want to be exposing everything. If my children were still under the age of 18, I would not be talking about fevers or even my daughter's ITP. I would not, because that's really her story to tell. The only reason I've talked about the ITP is because I mentioned it in my book. I've been writing about it because it's something, it was the springboard that led me to join Quiverful. So this was going to be a way different stream until I talked to my husband back there. I was taking a nap and said, didn't you say you weren't going to talk about her anymore because she discussed you? And I was like, yes. He says, what makes you a hypocrite? Well, yeah, I am a hypocrite. It infuriates me when she talks about his health. I guess she's sad fishing. Christine, that's it. She's sad fishing every time she mentions that child's health. But after talking with my husband and realizing what a hypocrite I am, and I'm a big hypocrite, I have no problem admitting that, unlike some people, I can't really attack her parenting style. What I can do is lay out facts like Harvard Medical says that when it's 102.0, doctor. Those are the things you should be doing with a normal, healthy child. If you have a child that has chronic illnesses, that point needs to be lower when you consult with a doctor. Also, is the temperature reading accurate? With her credibility, there is an outside chance of that. Java man, I fully understand that too, because there's times when I've had bad readings on thermometers, which is why I have two or three and I calibrate them sometimes against what the clinic has. I do that with my blood pressure cuff. I've done that with my O2 stat thingy because most people, it doesn't matter what their O2 stats are because they usually are in a certain range between like 100 and maybe 97. Mine go all over the damn chart. So you need to make sure that your instruments actually work right. And the best way to do that, if you're ever in doubt, go to your doctor's office, to the clinic. Most of the times they're more than happy to say, hey, let's take your O2 stat, your blood pressure, your fever, your temperature, whatever, and check it against what you have. I found that my blood pressure cuff actually measures me a little high compared to the one at the clinic. So I know that if, and my doctor has already told me she does not like the fact that I have a wrist one. But I will tell you, this one I've calibrated, it's as accurate. So you're right. I'm not sure how accurate that thermometer is that she's using, or if that she actually used it, or if this was sometime in the past. I'm just going to throw this out there. This is a shitty thing to do to your child. It's an incredibly shitty thing to keep sharing his medical story like that without his permission, especially once he's older like this. And he can, I'm sure he wouldn't, I'm sure when he gets 18, he's going to be really pissed off. Of course, going to the doctor would take her away from her job of research that posted about Twitter. I saw that. That just infuriated me as well. Just because I'm trying not to talk about her does not mean that I'm not affected by the things she says and does, because I am. Like I said, this weekend I was already jumpy as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs, but you add in, um, even though I knew we were only going to get rain, I didn't want the house to flood. I've had the house flood two or three times. It's never a pleasant thing to deal with. Um, Even though I now have a French drain around the house, I still worry when it's that much. But anyway, that's me. I'm a worry wart. That may be why I take my child to the doctor when they had 102 fever or even less, because I always was the worry wart. And the doctors at our clinic, they knew I was a worry wart, but they knew why I was a worry wart. They knew that I had a child that had had some issues with her immune system, and they knew that I was just hovering like crazy. How badly did I hover? Well, there was another child that came down with the rare blood disorder my daughter had, and they said, "Okay, we're breaking HIPAA to have you go talk to this mother," because apparently the mother wasn't taking the condition seriously and didn't understand. Look how long she waited when his shunt was blocked the last time. No, that breaks my heart for the poor boy. And I just want to say that I've been almost in tears this weekend thinking about that child and thinking about the shunt, thinking about the fever, thinking about how on earth you'd wait, why you wouldn't call the doctor immediately. I think about my own behavior. I think about how much I hovered over my daughter. She and I are very, very close. And I think that it was forged in that awful time. A glass of water plus microwave. You can make the thermometer have any temperature you want. That's very clever. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. I take that back. When I was in high school, the popular thing to do, hey, Gingerly, would be to boil water and stick your thermometer in it. If you were a teenager and you just wanted to avoid, you wanted to blow off school and your parents were working, what you would do was you would get up and boil some water, Wait till it got to the temperature you wanted and take your temperature. Oh, mom, I can't go to school. My thermometer said, my temperature says I'm 101. I just feel horrible. I need to stay in and rest. No, I never did that, but I certainly knew a ton of kids that would take the family thermometer and would make it get warm. Because that was the one thing that was interesting in my high schools. I remember the kids always had a pile of crap you could do that would make you seem sick to your parents. And they spread that stuff like it was butter on bread. I mean, oh, gingerly, hay, and yeah. So he's not old enough or for that now to start that. Make sure it is not 120. They might think you were dead. I know, Java Man. We used to talk about ways to wait. They'd talk about ways to wait until the water was just the right temp, because if you did the 120, everybody would think, oh my goodness, you are dead. You're dead. You're dead. It's like certain claims I saw recently about blood sugar being zero on somebody. I had to look that up. Now, granted, I don't know what it is in newborn babies and infants. I'm going to throw that out there because I don't know. And I can't say that I do. And I've had some blood sugar issues myself. So these things with the blood sugar that are being talked about. You know what a blood sugar of zero means? You're dead. If you get to 70 and you cannot bring it back up again by having a snack, you have to go to the doctor's office at that point. I mean, it is. And 100 and 130, if I'm not 130, if it drops to 30, you start having convulsions. So basically zero is impossible. And that's another claim that was thrown out there recently. It's zero blood sugar. Cat's body temperature is 102. I know that. I learned that the hard way a couple of times because of one of my cats. Taking him to the vet because I thought he had a bad temperature, because I thought he was sicker than he was. He was sick, but a body temperature, the cat temperature, I didn't know. Ignorant, ignorant, ignorant. And I'm hoping that this situation we're discussing, this little bout of bad parenting, is because somebody is just ignorant. But how can somebody have those kinds of things going on in their home and be that ignorant? I will never know. So, folks, know that this is true distraction. I called this weeks and weeks ago when I said that, well, not weeks and weeks ago, last week when she missed the deadline. I said she would do this, and she's done it now. So there it is. She's thrown the distraction out, and it's still happening. So make your own judgment on what is crappy parenting and what isn't. Gingerly, I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid that that might be. Is this about 7M or is this something new on the horizon? Java Man, I think that this is 7M. You know, she missed the deadline, her attorney did, and they're desperately trying to say they did not miss the deadline. 7M is asking for a summary judgment, which they have every right to ask for if she misses deadlines. And it's my understanding that wasn't the first deadline she missed, I want to say. We all hope that, exactly. We hope that there's nothing wrong there. But like I said, doctor, if it's 102.0 or greater, time to head to the doctor's office. It just is. So I spent the entire weekend just kind of fuming and ruminating about the temperature thing and about the cult claims and claims of research and everything else. I think it is Gingerly. I don't keep up with that, but I'm pretty sure it is. Or it is in 2 days, whatever it is. She posted that thing a couple of days ago, I thought, about the temperature, because it seems like I've been looking at that more than a day now. So one thing happened this weekend that was kind of weird for me is I discovered that I can use this to live stream straight onto this thing, and I had no idea. I mean, I knew I could, but I couldn't figure it out, and it was a mess. So I expect to see a lot more videos about Costa Rica being uploaded as I go through my old videos and I start uploading them, because I did make a ton of them. And being able to film on that for me it's going to be freeing. It means that you get to see my living room, you'll get to see my garage, my garden, my pool, my patio, all of those silly things. It doesn't limit me just to this, the bedroom, which is kind of a drag. I love my bedroom, but it's nice to be able to leave it. And I don't have a basement to go to like some people. I can't go in my basement and live stream because there's not one. She was disparaging her family again with her patriarchal comments. Yes, I saw Renelle Smith's video. I'm going to throw this out there. I want you to hear what she used to tell me. She used to tell me that her family um, was Catholic. And it sounded to me like everything, it was a typical Catholic family, um, where you get drug off to the Catholic Church when you're a kid. And then the day you turn 18, you're kind of like, peace out, and you don't go there ever again. You may go for Marians and Barians and weddings, but that's about it. Maybe you go once in a great while to midnight mass because you feel like you miss it a little bit. But it wasn't the CULT. She never mentioned that anybody in her family was one of the rabid, more conservative Catholics. Never mentioned that. So I think there was no CULT forbidden experience there at all. And her experience at her old church, what she explained to me, and again, this is what she told me. This is how I interpreted everything she told me. This is how I understand it, was that she was at the evangelical church, the non-denominational, maybe about 2 years. And she was a atheist the entire time she was there, that she tried to believe but could not or would not, but that the reason they joined was to get help with the son. They joined to get money and help with the son, and the church did not provide adequate money and or help. And I can understand why you would join a church when you have a child that is chronically ill, because that's how I joined my old church. If it weren't for that, I probably would not have ever joined. I mean, I probably would have been sitting there in my happy agnostic self, not believing in anything. I might have gone a couple times. I would have said no. But that was it. And then they left because they didn't feel like they had enough support. Now, I don't know if that was financial support. Well, I know that she complained about the financial support aspect of it, that they didn't get financially supported. And she complained about there didn't help her with V, that they didn't get any respite care or anything like that. But I don't know if there was an emotional support component that was screwed up or not either. Hey, Rag and Hill. We just don't know. There is absolutely no way to determine any of her truthfulness on any of this. She's told so many different stories about so many different church experiences, and the only reason that I am even sounding off on this is because for me, this is the awfulness of it. I lived it. I lived it. And there is nothing that I can compare living through being part of a patriarchal society like that. You know, my husband, he doesn't have the bad memories I do. He doesn't have quite the damage. And I think it's because he's a man and he didn't have quite the same struggles I did. I mean, let's look at these evangelical, non-denominational, equivocal kind of denominations. I don't call them the CULT word. I call them high demand religious organizations because that's what they are. They aren't the CULT. Even IBLP is not the CULT. They are the high demand religious organization. And those organizations are primarily carried out by women. Men might be leaders, but women do all the stuff. Women do everything in those churches. The men sit back and pontificate, like the whole idea of the Jewish village elders sitting at the gate debating the Old Testament. Well, debating the books of Judaism. That's really what a lot of this boils down to with a lot of these patriarchal churches. And it's not just physical labor, it's emotional labor that goes into women being in these things. It's smiling, it's all the time, it's being cheerful, it's being submissive, it's not crushing some poor man's theology by having an opinion. It's making things for million man potato salad march. I don't know. It's doing all the work for Sunday school. It's doing all the work for so many different missions in the church behind the scenes, unsung heroes. But she did say when she decided to leave the Catholic Church, she said her mom was supportive of it. Gingerly, I remember that too. If she had a good relationship with her family, she would have gotten support there. Exactly. Exactly, she would have. The time she called me out in one of her lives had to do with help that a church gives. I shared that my church helped me greatly when my middle son was born with severe health issues. Kentucky girl, that is what a lot of churches are really great about doing. Hey, Aussie. My old church was phenomenal about surrounding me with emotional support and prayer when I first joined and our daughter was having such problems with maintaining her platelet levels. They were awesome about that. And anytime I struggled and had difficulties and was just plain old despairing, they surrounded me with a community of love. And that is invaluable. I cannot hate on them for that. Now, a lot of the other stuff that happened, I can look at and say, yeah, that was not right, but not that. That was wonderful. She got hostile and started calling me a hick and a redneck. She would. She would. That is awful. I'm so sorry you had that experience with her. Um, and the thing is, all creators are going to make mistakes with some of that stuff. We all are. I laughed at Redneck Barbie, at Backwoods Barbie, not Redneck Barbie. What am I thinking? Backwoods Barbie in here one time because I was talking about $100,000 not being that much of an income and like not being wealthy. I'm just going to say that. In DC, that's not going to buy you a whole lot. I'm going to throw that out there. I have my daughter bought a house this year. It was quite expensive and it was smaller than the one that we had. Um, it is funny, Kentucky girl. We all come into this with our cognitive biases. We all do. I have mine. So I was laughing about that. And Backwoods Barbie was highly offended. And I was like, whatever. So I started thinking about it later because overthinking is my superpower. And I was thinking, yeah, that wasn't very kind. So I started looking up and seeing what the median income was in her area. And $100,000 goes a long way in rural Mississippi. It does not in suburban DC. In the Delmarva or any of that, it just does not because it's go, go, go. Mr. Belzer called it Hollywood for ugly people, DC. And he may be right. If you look at some of our politicians, we are not talking the most fortunately favored people as far as our looks go. That's all I'm going to say. So we all have those biases. We all say stupid stuff. So I'm going to give her a pass for that. I mean, that's bad, But the fact that she couldn't see that it was bad and couldn't come back and apologize later is the problematic part. And she's not the only one that does that. There are a whole long laundry list of creators I could throw out here that never apologize, never explain, never back up, never feel bad about something they've said. Of course, we all have those biases, and we come from different lived experiences too. Also, exactly. I took a tour of Congress in 1997. It is amazing how these people all look alike. Java Man, it is, and how they're all groomed alike and very bizarre. You know, I never fit with that culture very well. It just was not me. Okay, I'm going to say that. And I used to have really, really long hair when we first, well, not when we first joined our old church, but I got really, really long hair after I'd been there a little while because that was the standard. And I used to use 3 sets of hot rollers when it was this long to set it. And it was very dark, then it was black. I cut my hair the day that a church elder said to me, "You know, you look a lot like Monica Lewinsky." And this is when the Bill Clinton Monica Lewinsky scandal was going on. And I was like horrified and backing up. Totally changed how I was dressing and cut my hair off because I could not. Dreadlocks. Now, I've always wanted dreads, but I'm not brave enough to go there. Backwoods Barbie yells a lot and all is often playing the victim card. Yeah, I know that. I later apologized. I don't know if she heard my apology or not, but hey, I threw it out there in the universe. It's on her whether she accepts it or not. You can only, worry about your own, how you're taking things and all that. Um, Java Man, we would know. Well, I'm gonna say we would know that one was a lie. But I'll say this: I've seen photos. She did have long hair once upon a time. I don't know how thick it was. I don't know how long it was, but it was there. Somebody pointed out something very interesting this morning. It might have been you, Java Man, about menopause. Someone is creeping up on menopause age, and we all know that ain't no fun. That's going to be a rough ride. You talk about hot and cold flashes. You talk about fevers. Oh my word, hair falling out by the handful, face breaking out, having your second bout of acne. Oh, I can't even begin to tell you how awful that was. And I had a minimal one compared to many people I know because I'd had a complete and total hysterectomy and I was on HRT for a long time. Chin hairs, oh, I get chin hairs still. I'm old. Menopause is the pits. You are right. Whether you have an easy time of it or a hard time, it's always the pits. I remember one time being at church in the thick of it, and I had this dress that was like, it was like, I guess, was not so much a sleeveless dress as it was like a calf length um, white beater. So anyway, so I had this shirt on that went down to there that was loose and had these straps, and I'm sitting there in church like this, flip flops on, sweating my rear end off, grumbling they need to turn the AC down, and everybody around me had on sweaters. I never took any meds with it, weren't natural. Oh my God, the heat. Oh my goodness, I don't know how you dealt with it. I was on the HRT because I had to take everything out well before I went into menopause. And they said, take these. They said, every year back off and see where you are. The year you don't have any hot flashes or you have minimal hot flashes is the year you can stay off. That took like 5 or 6 years. And when it finally happened, it was minimal hot flashes. And I was happy with it because I'd heard so many horror stories, and it was not a great thing. But guess what? It wasn't as bad as what was anticipating that it might have been, as it was. And the reason I say menopause is so bad because every year I'd back off the hormones for a week, like they tell me, and I would have hellacious hot flashes and various things. I mean, we all get that stuff. So by going back on it and just waiting till it was all over with, all over but the shouting, was the best thing ever. I don't know how you coped. I had a lot of friends that talked about taking various supplements, and apparently that helps too. And so I don't know. Are we going to see more fat? Do you think we'll see sad fishing when that happens? Because she's getting that age. Once you start getting around that time, and that starts happening, it can turn your life. That happened with so many of my friends, and I wouldn't even wish that on her. Not at all. So I'm hoping we can go back to us never talking about her again, because I've also considered that by talking about her, we're feeding the ego, we're feeding the monster, we're feeding the possible narcissism. That might be the one medical problem that she won't disclose. Java Man, if she's sweating her ass off, she might disclose. And here's where it really gets funny. When whoever mentioned that, and I believe it was you, Java Man, I started doing some research on Adderall and that menopause. And they said that if you take Adderall when you're going through menopause, it actually eases the symptoms. They don't really quite Adderall when you're going through menopause, it actually eases the symptoms. They don't really quite understand why, but it can ease the symptoms. I thought that was kind of strange. It was like, whoa. It will be bad. She already talking about sweat running down her stomach the other day. Yeah, she did, which to me, it sounds very much like menopause. I don't sweat like that when I get a fever. I get the chills, and I'm under 50 blankets even here. She mostly discloses others' medical problems, which is why I'm talking about this job, man. I think it's a possibility. Christine, you're lucky. I went through it around 50, but I'd had the surgery in my 40s. But it took me all that time to back off and actually not have any cessation of symptoms until that point. Oh, and from talking to women in my family who did not have hysterectomies, they all had late menopause like that in their 50s, late 50s, mid to late 50s. And I just as soon skipped all of that. It's just terrible. So, yeah, I believe she's a crappy mother. That's my firmest belief. Um, when she posts all these things, all it does is reinforce it. It reinforces it, and I just start losing my mind. I spent, like I said, this weekend just thinking about all the CULT claims and then trotting out the child to sad fishing over a poor child's fever instead of turning around and taking the child to the doctor. She officially sucks in my book. I think attitude does have a lot to do with it, Aussie. I think so. And knowing that it will end one day, I think also is important. And there's some really funny things about it. For me, it was the breakouts on my chin, all the zits I got. It was like, how is it possible to have zits and hot flashes at the same time? To me, that's like counterintuitive, but there it is. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go. It is actually, the sun's out. I think I want to go swim before it starts raining again, because it's been raining like crazy. We're in the midst of rainy season, which is the suckiest time to be here, is like October. And the freedom that comes with that. Yeah, it is a freedom going on. And it's definitely, when you get to the side, it's definitely a freedom. It's like, I no longer have to worry about that. Just not having to buy sanitary napkins or tampons was a huge saving here. Yeah, I wish you did too. Everybody have a great day, and I'll see you when I have something that's not KJ related to talk about, because like I said, I think we're feeding the beast when we talk about her. So I think it's better if I attempt not to, even though all I can say is all I can think of is what a crappy parent. What a totally crappy, awful parent. Criminally negligent? I don't know. I don't think so. But just crappy.